getting to the NBA shouldn't be your goal. It should be to have a long career in the NBA. Because I had a vigorous work ethic as an athlete, as a college athlete, and getting to the NBA was my dream. And when I heard my name called, and I signed my rookie deal, I thought I made it. I thought I made it, and that couldn't have been the there couldn't have been a more wrong approach. When you are entering a new sphere, you have to work double time, triple time, quadruple time to just be good enough to stay there.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vet Moves podcast, where you get courtside seats to the shortcuts that you can only learn through experience. I'm your host, Anthony Goods, representing Swish Cultures, and we got a very, very special guest here. We got a guy that I've had the privilege of going toe to toe with. Might have got hit with a couple crossovers, but luckily he wasn't in Europe too long before he headed over and started a very nice career as an assistant coach in the college ranks, and he's in currently having a successful first season as a head coach over at George Mason University. So I'd like you all please to give a nice welcome to my man Kim English. Kim, what's good, bro?
What's up, Anthony? How you doing, man? Appreciate you having me on your podcast.
Nah, it's definitely a pleasure to have you here, man. You've touched so many levels of basketball from getting drafted. I mean, having a successful college career, getting drafted, um, play good basketball overseas, and then now you're into college. So I know you got a lot of expertise, man. That we definitely gonna try and tap into. But I really want to ask. So, what is a vet move that you would have told yourself as a rookie player, and then what's a vet move you would have told yourself as a rookie assistant coach? Now
Yeah,
that you're looking back.
you know, um, it's a very easy answer for me, and it's that arriving there, getting there, is not the goal, right? And I'm talking the highest level, right? Like really the NBA, getting to the NBA shouldn't be your goal. It should be to have a long career in the NBA. Because I had a vigorous work ethic as an athlete, as a college athlete, and getting to the NBA was my dream. And when I heard my name called, and I signed my rookie deal, I thought I made it. I thought I made it, and that couldn't have been the there couldn't have been a more wrong approach. When you are entering a new sphere, you have to work double time, triple time, quadruple time to just be good enough to stay there. Because the level of competition is incredible. Simple math and 450 NBA jobs, 60 draft picks every year, 60 in, 60 out, 60 in, 60 out. So it's not about getting to the NBA; it's about playing in the NBA. I wish I had a better hunger when I realized my dream of making it to the NBA.
So you felt like once you got to the league, you got comfortable.
Absolutely, very comfortable, very comfortable. And I
But
still,
what is real quick? What does comfortable look like?
well, it can to the layman, it looks like hard work. I was the first one at every practice in Detroit. Brandon Knight and I were two of the last people to leave. Me, Brandon Knight, Chris Middleton were the last guys to leave every practice. Like, yeah, I was a good teammate. I worked hard. I competed when I got on the court, but it wasn't the level of obsession of which I worked in college. It's late nights. It's after the season, staying in your city, not going home, and you know having a fun off season because you get through the rigor of the NBA season. Like getting comfortable still looks like hard work, but to have success in the NBA, especially as a second rounder. Like, I mean, when you're a second round, it's fit, it's luck. It's not much of a variance between second round draft picks and undrafted guys. High level, like people that are overseas and second round, it's all the same. But it's less about what it looks like to get comfortable, and more about what it should look like to not get comfortable. And it should look like basically Kobe. Like it should look like Kobe, that story where Kevin Durant said he wanted to work out with him. And, when KD woke up, he seen Kobe getting back from his first workout, and then he showered and went and did another one with KD. Like, it looks like, Kobe getting shots up whenever their plane landed in the city, which he passed down to Julius Randle. Like, it is an obsessive work ethic if you want to truly have success, um, in that league.
That's that's some dope insight, man. I feel like a lot of people at every level, and I think even so overseas, a lot of guys, you see how the EuroLeague guys are living and stuff like that, and a lot of guys, want to achieve that level. But I mean, that's another level of work ethic, and sometimes it's difficult. You don't have access to the gyms at all times, and you know what I
Find,
mean, and things of that nature.
like, I think you can be obsessive and finding a way. Like, find a way. Like there's a gym somewhere. Like get find a way to do it.
Yeah, nah, that's a fact. So when you transitioned as an assistant coach, what's a vet move you would have told yourself as a young assistant?
Um, I learned from my experiences as a athlete when I got into the coaching side, and I just vowed to myself to never let that level of comfortability happen again. And I'm constantly on edge. Um, I would go back and tell myself to remain on edge. Um, and it's the three areas of being a college basketball coach, and that's recruiting, that's player development, and that's basketball. So for me, it's being on edge every single day of my life and career, getting better at those three areas, working at those three areas obsessively recruiting and trying to find the best talent. Um, Obsessively working to help your players become better athletes and people and well-rounded individuals, and obsessively gaining my knowledge of the game, learning more, learning new strategies, learning more about our team, learning more about the opponent, just continually trying to challenge yourself and becoming better. So I would tell myself to keep that edge and never lose it.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think that as a player, there are just a lot of things you don't see about the other side. As far as what coaches put into every day, we just show up, practice, get shots up and bounce. Whereas we don't know exactly everything that's put into it, and I think that even players transitioning from college, or I mean not college, but like professional basketball into coaching. I mean, I think there's definitely a learning curve as well as a lifestyle change. I mean, that I think some players have to be accustomed to. Could you speak to what was that lifestyle change like for you, and how did you adjust if it was difficult at all?
Um, it wasn't difficult for me to adjust to because I had always known I wanted to be a coach. I just thought that it would be after 10, 15 years in the NBA. So my mind was always on what my program would look like, what the lifestyle would be like. And, you're right. It's 24 hours. I usually fall asleep on my couch watching film. I wake up. I wake up and usually try to watch some more, and then maybe get in my bed, and then I wake up. And before I start my day, I start it with film of our next opponent, or I practice, or I'm making an edit, or I'm watching film of a recruit. Um, it's nonstop, but it's so worth it. The outcome is going to be really worth it. The outcome when I see our players in the NBA or having successful careers overseas, when we win championships, when we're competing in the NCAA tournament, it's going to be so worth it. And I just know everyone doesn't work like that, And for our staff as a whole, it's gratifying. And we're experiencing some of the lumps right now. I think we're 11-8 right now. We lost a double overtime game last night to St. Louis, and it's really hard right now, right? But you just got to keep chopping wood, carrying water, and giving your all for your players. Because at the end of the day, players have a PhD in knowing if you care or not. They know if you're in it for you or you're in it for them. So for us, we have great satisfaction and comfortability, and just knowing that our guys know we're doing everything for them. Like, I'm not watching this film for myself, right? I'm trying to get
Right.
intelligence on the court. I'm trying to give them the best opportunity. Like, I play a little bit of guys a lot of minutes, and like that's how I would want to be. I would want my coach to let me rock, and
Oh, yeah,
do it.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, man. So, going back to your decision, obviously you just said that this was always something that you wanted to do was coaching. Did you ever flirt with the idea of doing something else after you decided you were gonna be done hooping?
Yeah, I almost took a job with Sam Hinkie and at the Sixers. I was trying to decide if I wanted to go the front office route or the coaching route. Um, I eventually made the decision. I thought coaching was best for me, just because the hands-on approach, being on the court. I love that aspect of it, the grind. The feeling after a loss, and then being able to do something about it. You know, when to be able to impact the mindset and the vigor and the physicality we'll play with the next game spoke to my personality more than having to make 30,000 feet decisions. After a loss, there's nothing I can do about it. But
Yeah.
finding new players for the next season or maybe trades. But so actually, I made the decision to coach. Um, Basketball is my life. Basketball is my life. I love it, and it's not a self-centered pursuit. I'm really excited about what's going to come of it for the guys that we coach when they go on
Right.
to us and help them gain generational wealth as best I can.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing about coaching is you really, especially at the college level, what I mean, I'm still in touch with, all of my assistant coaches, the head coaches, even the ops guys sometimes, what I mean? I think it's just such a pivotal stage in a young man's life. And you're hands on and you get to have an impact so early on. So I think that path is definitely valuable, especially with somebody of your experience. And but I want to touch on something you mentioned, and that's I don't think a lot of people think about when you're coaching, especially when you think about coaching versus the front office side, is the emotional investment. Like you have to wear the wins and the losses, the highs and the lows a little more than when you're kind of hands off and in the front office. What are some of the other things that you think people don't see or think about in regards to college coaching that are difficulties?
Well, you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds um, who have a direct impact on you feeding your family. It's a lot of responsibility on them. So it's a lot of responsibility. It's a total person approach. It's academically, it's socially, it's in this era of COVID. Like what our athletes have had to go through the last 3 years with COVID testing, tournament cancellation, games getting canceled, socially distant meals, not having roommates on the road, which was a thing in college that you kind of got to enjoy watching NBA games late at night with your boy talking about the game the next night. Like there's been a level of isolation in college basketball, college athletics that I think has had an adverse effect on these young people. And how we manage our emotions as coaches, how we manage our disappointments after losses, it's changed me, right? Like We had a kid last night turn down a wide open shot that I think would have broke the other team's back. Right, we missed some free throws, we missed some layups late in the game, in moments where usually in a normal setting, me as a coach, I might lose my mind and go ballistic. But you have to think that these young men are someone else's babies, right? Like I
Hmm.
have two daughters, and I know how I look at them, and these kids we have are someone else's babies, and they've gone through a lot the last 3 seasons. So, you know, how we manage them through all this, how we manage disappointment, and improvement, and roster building through all of this. It's a new challenge, but people don't care. Like, and that's fine. I
Hmm.
get it. It's sports. It's entertainment for other people. People care about one thing: are you winning or are you losing? That's it. So that's the beautiful thing about it is that we know that it's a sport. It's a zero sum game. You either win or you lose. It's no more victories. No, yeah, they lost, but no, you are a winner or a loser, and that approach will help everyone, over time. But no, it's a lot that goes into it. You know, injuries, COVID protocols. Uh, it's a lot.
So, can you describe, let's say, a typical day as an assistant coach? What's like a typical day for an assistant coach?
As an assistant coach, you one you make it whatever you want. I don't think being an assistant coach is monolithic. There are different coaches at different stages in their career. There's a guy like Phil Martelli, who's been a 40-year college basketball head coach, is now an assistant coach at Michigan. There's a guy on our staff named Nate Tomlinson, who is, in his first year on the road as an assistant coach. He's been basically an assistant coach at Colorado the last 3 years, but it's not a monolithic, set. So it's different for everyone. Is your focus more on recruiting? Is your focus more on basketball? Is your focus more on player development? I think that I don't have an itinerary for the day, but I would like to think that every day you'd spend some time in those three areas, spending time helping your
Hmm.
guys get better, spending time trying to find, identify, evaluate, and sign new talent, and preparing for your next. And also, it's different days at different times in the season, right? Like in July when we're recruiting, that's the piece of that pie may be 80% recruiting and 10% player development, 10% worrying about your basketball game. In March Madness, when you're trying to win a national championship, that may be 5% recruiting, right? Like 15%
Right.
of player development, 80% basketball. What do we got to do to win this next game? So, no matter the time of the year, I think those three areas are obviously really important. Um, so yeah.
Okay. And what is, or what was, what was the moment you knew you were ready to become a head coach?
Well, you never know. You never know that you're ready. You until
Right.
you never know that you're ready until you've done it. You've been around coaches, and I played for Mike Anderson at Missouri. I played for Frank Haith at Missouri. I worked for Frank Haith at Tulsa. Worked for Tad Boyle in Colorado. I worked for Rick Barnes at Tennessee. So I had been around four really good program builders in my time as a player and a coach. And I developed what I thought was my best strategy to build a winner in my program here at Mason. And, after you think about it and you go over it and you have all these contingencies and what would you do here? What would you do here? You get to a point in your assistant coaching career where you try to think like a head coach at all times.
Okay.
You just exist. In my mind, at Tennessee, I was a head coach. So if I said something, saw something, or thought something, I'd say it to the team. I'd say it to Coach Barnes. I'd What would I when crisis happens? What would I do? What would I do in the game? What would I do? What would I do? And eventually, you get a level of conviction where you're like, uh, all right, I'm ready to do it. There's a difference
Right.
between knowing I know I'm ready for it. But you just get to feeling the itch, like I'm ready to make these decisions. Um, and so you go after it. You pursue it, and when you get it, you got to make sure you have a really good staff around you, great support from the administration. Find yourself good players, give yourself good program habits and toughness, and go. It's time to hook it up.
Right. Did you ever have a point in your career as an assistant coach where, like, let's say the head coach was ejected or something and you had to take over
No,
prior to getting the head coaching job?
no, I never stood up on the bench until November 9th, 2021 against Stony Brook. That was my first time coaching anyone.
Okay. All right. Well, now that you're a head coach, what is like the interview process like? I've heard about the interview processes for head coaching. Is there an interview process for assistant coaches as well? And if so, what are the differences? But mainly, what's the interview process like? For head coaches.
Well, for assistants, it's different. For whoever's hiring you. I never interviewed for an assistant coaching job. I just had relationships with these guys, or these guys heard about me through other people and reached out. I guess you could say we interviewed. We talked on the phone a couple of times, normal conversations, and you get the job. But some coaches do actually sit down and interview a pool of candidates for assistant coaching jobs, and I think it's valuable experience to go through that. Yes, there is a stringent interview process for head coaching jobs at most places, especially if you're someone that's never done it. It's usually a search committee full of people within the university, athletic directors, deputy athletic directors, compliance directors, maybe the president. They build their own team, and they put you through a series of interviews and questions and scenarios, and um, deem your readiness for the position.
So, what kind of questions would they ask? Like, because I would imagine when you're sitting down with people with the university, when you're sitting down with people with the university, I imagine it's not just basketball they're looking for. You know what I mean? They're looking for somebody to represent the university. So, what are some of those questions outside of basketball that typically come up in these type of meetings?
Well, if you've gotten to that point, they've done their background to find out who you are, right? Who you are as an individual, as far as integrity goes. When you get to the process, it's more about why should we hand you the keys to this program that in the A10 or the Big East, uh, is the front door of the university. A college athletics programs has the keys to bump ups in enrollment and revenue and everything. It can be it can be astronomical what a good college basketball program can do for a university. So why should we deem you the executive, the CEO of this program? And then the questions start to it gives you an opportunity to paint the vision for what your program is going to look like. They'll ask you about your staff. They'll ask you about your style of play. They want to know how much you know about the job, the actual job, the challenges, the limitations, the upside. How you're going to recruit. What's your recruiting philosophy? How are you going to play? What's your style of play? And sometimes it may get to basketball. It may get to actual in the NBA more so than college. It really is heavily, a quiz of your basketball acumen. College, not so much, but our AD actually did. He asked me a range of basketball questions, and for a coach, that's kind of the most comforting part of the session.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, you've been talking basketball like your whole life, but when you're up for a dream job like that, having your own program, being a head coach, I imagine it's a high pressure situation, sitting in front of an AD and possibly not even knowing what's going to come up because I mean every university is so different and who they're looking to carry the university forward and things of that nature. But let's say, the last scenario I want to give you is let's say you have an opening in regards to an assistant coach, um, and a former player, approaches you for that job that you don't know at all. Um, what things are you looking for in regards to fulfilling, let's say, the third assistant or whatever it may be?
Well, I'm looking for integrity. I'm looking for a great and insatiable work ethic, and I'm looking for humility. Uh, Players get a bad rap in this game. Former players get a bad rap in this game. We get viewed as lazy. We get viewed as like a lot of times great players don't make great coaches. Um, so couldn't tell you how much I've had to fight that. Like
Mm,
what I did as a player don't mean nothing. Like absolutely nothing. I'm not resting on those laurels at all because no one cares. No one cares right now how many points I averaged at Missouri or how many games we won or how many Big 12 championships or NCAA tournaments or where I got drafted or who I. No one cares. It no longer matters in coaching. The only thing that matters is the impact you can make from your current seat. And that's one, getting good players to come play for us. That's helping them become better players, and that's helping our current players win game. So I can't stress enough how humble former players must be coming into this space and showing that they're not resting on their laurels. You can't act like a player anymore. You can't show up to the bus right before it leaves. You can't just show up to practice. You can't not give 110%. You have to learn video, learn how to work sport code and synergy, learn all the metrics on KenPom and Hoop Math, and learn the new trends out there. Try to learn analytics. Try to, go pick a recruiting class like 3 years away and dive into it and learn it inside and out. You have to work so hard in wanting to be a great basketball coach and not resting on the laurels of your ability to be a good player. So for me, if a player that I didn't know reached out to me, automatically I would find out about that player and I would reach out to everyone around him, all his coaches, all his former teammates, and I would get to know who he was as a person, how he was as a
mm,
teammate, and that's where it would start for me. Um, the integrity part, the work ethic part, the humility part are more important than me almost than anything. Like I'd
mm.
take a below average recruiter, a below average basketball mind, and a below average player development guy if there was great integrity, there was great work ethic, and there was great humility. Because with that, it's limitless what you can build.
For sure. And I think, especially as a head coach, I mean, your staff is a representation of you. So, you have to make that right decision because a lot of times they're out there on your behalf, whether it be recruiting, talking to parents and things of that nature. So, all those things are definitely super important. But one last question. So let's say we have a player that's 1 year away. He knows he's going to retire in a year. What are some things he can do to prepare to
That's
make this transition
that,
into assistant coaching?
that's a great. You've asked some great questions, but that's your best one. That's a great question. Um, I'd say find out a way to know 2 years before, right? You think it's 1 year. Try. Let's start this process 2 years before. You got 2 more years to make some really good money overseas or wherever you're playing. Um, think back. Think back to who your assistant coaches were in college. Think back to who recruited you out of high school. Think back to your best friends in the business, your best friends and the best friends that you play with, ask them who their assistant coaches were, or their head coaches, and start building a relationship with those guys 2 years out. When you're home in the summer, go train with their players, right? Go play pickup with their players, go to lunch with the staff, let them know you're wanting to get into coaching, build a genuine relationship with those people um, well before it's time to have a job. Because, like, you asked me, what would I do? Like, if I have an opening on staff? If I have an opening on staff, those names are in my head, right? We have really good staff. I mean, Nate Tomlinson could be an NBA head coach. He could be an NBA head coach. He'll I mean every Pac-12 school out west will probably try to get him if there's an opening, right? Dwayne Simpkins will be a head coach one day, probably very soon. Dennis Felton has been a head coach at the University of Georgia at Western Kentucky. So there's going to be openings because our guys will continue to advance and grow and move on. But like, those names are already swirling in my head, from the experiences that I've seen. And I'm not seeking them out. It's people that are seeking out me, right? Showing that they're wanting to learn. That shows me a great humility, right? Sending me a random video here and there about something they've seen or learned from the game, or if Texas Tech does something really good defensively, or Gonzaga does something really good offensively, or Marquette is doing something different. They did like a random project on their own, right? And sent me the results of their finding. That shows me a great work ethic. And from being around a person one on one, you can't measure that. It's better than any text or DM, and it gives a chance to show your integrity. You know, when I knew I was going to stop playing, I sent while I was overseas. I was playing in France. I got home from practice, and I sent Frank Hay a full scouting report on every opponent they had, 1 through 35, for an entire season. I sent him a scouting report on their next opponent. I didn't ask. I didn't want anything from it.
Mm-hmm.
Just showing him. I was showing him that I was good enough. I was showing him that my basketball acumen, that my work ethic was there, that my level of consistency. I didn't miss a game. That was, if it was Wi-Fi issues, man, I was in some random Port Tez city in France.
Yeah.
Our hotel. I was in the middle of a casino. I was in the middle of a casino in Port Tez sending a final game report for like Missouri, Alabama in 2014, 2013, 2014, whenever it was. Like, so he's seen the work ethic, he's seen the humility, he's seen that I wasn't just some former player that's trying to get a nice check, right? And that led to, when it was time for him to make a job, he had no issues. He knew, right? While I was over there, I was learning the class of 2016 and 2017. I was learning those high school classes. Like, I looked at the top 150, every kid from Maryland, every kid from Missouri, every kid from Detroit, um, you know, three places that I've been, right? I'm from Maryland. I played in Missouri. I played for the Pistons. I went to prep school in New England. I learned every kid from those areas. I started messaging with those kids and people around them, trying to build a relationship so that when it time for me to get the job, I know every kid in the country right now. I can say that with great confidence. Every kid in the country that's good enough, I know him. I know who he is. I know where he's from. I know who's on him. And now it's not even a doubt if you're ready to get the job.
Oh, that's some free game right there, man. That's super dope, man. I appreciate you coming on and dropping these gems, man. Last thing I need to know is if your kids really know Kim English the Killer, though.
No,
You still get out there with them?
oh, my players.
Yeah, your players. Do your players know the Killer?
they
That was Kim English on the court.
they all know they can't do nothing with me. They
That's super dope, man. But Kim, man, I really appreciate you stopping by, dropping the gems, showing us the ins and outs, man. This is deep, man, and I know it's gonna definitely help a lot of players and people in general
uh,
that have an interest in stepping into the coaching ranks, man. Best of luck
thank
as we come down to the latter of this season, man, and stay healthy with all the craziness that's going on, man. I wish all the health and wealth to you and your family, bro.
thanks, brother. I appreciate you, man. Much love.
All right, and we're out. That's the end of this episode, and stay tuned for our next guest.